Hi everybody, my name is Kojo Kandai. I'm the program manager with My Brother's Keeper Columbus. I want to welcome you to this conversation on name, image, and likeness. We have a dynamic panel with us, going to have some enlightening conversation and things that we think that you can take with you to prepare for your future. I want to say about My Brother's Keeper Columbus. It was started with the Obama Foundation in 2014, and Columbus was considered a model city as one of the original host cities for the My Brother's Keeper program. We have 6 foundational principles that we look to build on our summer enrichment opportunities with. They look at youth employment, it looks at safety in the community, it looks at being prepared for reading levels, it looks at second chance opportunities, it looks at career and college placement. This conversation here will help us prepare for career and college placement as it kind of exposes us to what is available to us moving forward post-secondary considerations. So before I introduce the panel, I want to have a welcome by our director. His name is Todd Diefenderfer. Mr. Diefenderfer.
Thank you, Kojo. And I want to say thank you for everything you're doing to help MBK do these great things this summer. I have to recognize our #1 MBK alumni, Chris Sewell, who helped put us on this excellent track to be here today, and Julia Carter, who I think stepped out of the room for a moment, but really is helping to bring all this great work together. So thank you to all you guys for what you're doing.
Thank you, Todd.
Yep. So as Kojo said, I'm Todd Diefender. I'm Deputy Director of the Department of Neighborhoods, and I just say thank you tonight. So first, thank you to everyone who's here. I really am appreciative of the time you're taking to invest in yourself and in your future in our community, and to everyone who's watching tonight on YouTube as well. You know, in the Department of Neighborhoods, our focus is really on empowering residents to be engaged in the community. It's important that everybody have a voice and be at the table. That's how we will be as strong as possible. That's how we will make Mayor Ginther's equity agenda come to life in our community. So we do that work with serving as your front door to city government, through the 3-in-1, our neighborhood liaisons, the neighborhood pride program. We also do really important work with the Community Relations Commission. So people who have experienced discrimination can file complaints with us, and we'll help you through that. We work with our New American communities. We also do the work with My Brother's Keeper and helping to engage boys and young men of color across the community. And that, again, is why tonight is so important, and we're so appreciative of all of you for being here with us. Not only are you taking this step to advance yourself and better yourself, you're also taking that first step to contribute to the community and really be a part of a strong Columbus going forward. So, again, thank you all for being here. Really, really appreciate it. And also to our panel, thank you, gentlemen, for being here tonight. I think we are very, very fortunate. As you'll hear more about them in a moment, we are so fortunate to have folks with such tremendous expertise right here in Columbus with us. So it's a tremendous opportunity. I mean, just to have you in Columbus is wonderful, but I think for everyone in the audience, this is a wonderful opportunity to pick their brain a little bit, learn from them, and really take that next step forward. So with that, I will step out of the way. Turn it back to you, Kojo.
Thank you, Tom.
And I look forward to it.
Thank you. Okay, so let's get to it. On our panel, we've got Cadivis Robinson. Cadivis is a former Olympian from Dallas, Texas, went to TCU to run track, and is currently the head cross-country and middle distance track coach at Ohio State University. Brother Robinson, introduce yourself.
Cadivis Robinson from the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Went to TCU for undergrad and grad school in California, and I always remind people that it's no former Olympians. Once you're an Olympian, you're always an Olympian. So,
how many times an Olympian?
I was a 2-time Olympian. Yeah. So we always kind of say that it's a running joke because people say former Olympian. So I'm pleased to be here with you guys.
Okay. Thank you, Cadivis. Next up, we've got Luke Fedlam. Luke is an attorney with the law firm of Porter Wright. He is from upstate New York. Went to Wake Forest undergrad and Ohio State Law School. Brother Fedlam, introduce yourself.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited for this panel, for this conversation. So I'm a partner, head of sports law at Porter Wright. So I work with individual professional athletes as a non-agent sports attorney. So I'm not an agent. What I do is work to protect and educate players, NBA, WNBA, NFL, all across the country and around the world. Started a company called Anomaly Sports a few years ago, just focused on education. So we've been engaged by the NBA, multiple NFL teams, a bunch of NCAA schools and universities to try to educate student athletes, especially on the topic of name, image, and likeness. So really excited to have this conversation.
All right. Thank you, Luke. Last on the panel, we've got Dominic Dj Jones, all the way from Mount Vernon Avenue, Brookhaven High School. And also with the University of Minnesota, was a football player at Minnesota and Otterbein. Dominic, introduce yourself.
Absolutely, man. First and foremost, thanks for having me on this panel here. Like you said, Dominic Jones, born in Columbus, Ohio. Had a chance to go play at the University of Minnesota, first team All Big Ten as a true freshman. Had an awesome experience there, and then decided to come back to Ohio, where I was the manager of community relations and youth affairs for the Cleveland Cavaliers for 5 years. After that, came back home and decided to start my own nonprofit, start to invest in youth. So I'm executive director of our Legacy Youth Sports League here and co-founder of Legacy U.
Absolutely, doing good work too, man. Thank you. Okay, let's get to it. While we're here, name, image, and likeness. I'm going to start with the attorney in the house, Luke Fedlam. Please give us just an intro. Tell us what name, image, and likeness is and what does it means? What does it do?
Yeah, so get ready. We're going to be here for the next hour with this answer. There's a lot we could talk about. But just to give a really kind of high level, so name, image, and likeness. Name, image, and likeness is it's really your intellectual property, if you will. We all own our own name, our image, and our likeness. So what is that, right? So your name is obviously your name. Your image would be like a picture. If somebody had a picture of any one of us, of you, that's your image. And then your likeness would be some type of graphic representation of who you are. So for me, I've got a mole on my cheek, a goatee, right, gray hair. So, if somebody sketched that out, right, you could say, oh, I know who that is, right? From a graphic representation, that's your likeness. So name, image, and likeness, everyone owns their rights to their name, image, and likeness. But up until July 1st of this year, student athletes at the college level were not able to monetize or commercialize or make money off of their name, image, and likeness like their non-athlete student counterparts have been able to do. The one thing I'll say, though, about name, image, and likeness is it goes just beyond the name, image, and likeness, right? So in the rules and what's happening now at the college level is it's student athletes having the right to be able to earn money in ways that they haven't before. So yes, it can be, endorsement opportunities, social media influencing, brand ambassador work, right? Licensing your name, image, and likeness, but it can also be things like entrepreneurship, starting for-profit, nonprofit companies. It could be doing camps and clinics, things that don't really necessarily deal with your name, image, or likeness, but it's you being able to make money in ways that you haven't been able to before.
Thank you, thank you. When you mentioned that overview about what name, image, and likeness is, I'm recalling a conversation that Dave Chappelle had talking about having his name or image for in perpetuity.
In perpetuity, yeah. Yeah, forever.
Forever.
Yeah.
And so this is in that same kind of vein.
Yeah, so you're asking these questions that are going to cause me to talk forever.
Okay.
Real quickly, in perpetuity means forever.
Yeah.
And that's the one thing that I always caution student athletes about. Because a lot of times, people may come and say, we want to do a deal with you and we're going to pay you for this appearance, but then we're going to take pictures of you and have, images of you doing this event for us, and we're going to be able to use that in perpetuity, forever.
Yeah.
Nah. If you're going to use my image, you're going to pay me for my image for as long as you use it. And when you stop paying me, you can stop using my image. So that's where in perpetuity is a term young people should really get to understand, because you don't want somebody else being able to leverage your name, image, and likeness for as long as they want without paying you for it.
Okay, got it. Thank you. Let's get it started.
Yeah.
DJ,
Yes.
as an athlete, when you hear that, you're talking about being able to monetize and take advantage of opportunities while you're in school, whether it be starting a nonprofit or whether it may be. Can you see how that will be beneficial for athletes and today, and how that could have been beneficial when you were an athlete in Minnesota?
Absolutely. I mean, it's going to be huge. It's going to be super important for high school athletes, even middle school athletes, to truly start to understand what name, image, and likeness really means and how it relates to them, especially if we're talking about social media wise, right? When I was back coming up, getting recruited, et cetera, we didn't have the access to social media that the kids actually have now. All right, that could be both the gift and the curse, so to speak. So I think that, we have to start younger in terms of educating our young athletes about the opportunities that they'll be presented. All right, so that's one thing. In terms of myself, I was a person who came in again. I started as a true freshman in the Big Ten, freshman first team All Big Ten, et cetera. But my pockets didn't say so. They sold my jerseys, but my pockets didn't say so. I was telling a story to not only my kids, but a lot of my other counterparts that, I remember coming to a bookstore and seeing my jersey being sold, but I didn't even know what was going on sale. Came into the bookstore, they was like, man, your jersey in there. Didn't have my name on the back, right? But it was an only number 2 jersey. I was only number 2 on the team. Started, the year before, and they was selling out. But meanwhile, my family at home had to purchase them, you know, and so for me, not to see a dime of that, to be told that you have to show up at appearances when you really don't want to. Never forget, my mom came in town for the first time, and, you know, I was super excited to see them, but they pulled me into an appearance and made me do it. You know, and I was like, my mom's is here. It was like, nah, like, we need you over here. And so, you know, the term student athlete, especially at that level, you're really athlete first.
Yes.
You know, student comes second. I've had guys even change majors because it conflict with, you know, the football schedule. So it'll be huge, you know, for young athletes and for athletes like myself who kind of passed through and wasn't able to. I think, again, we'll be able to at least educate the younger generation on how to monetize their name, image, and likeness.
Thank you. I, in fact, had a coach that told me you're an athlete student and was clear about that. Athlete
Absolutely.
First. I'm paying your way.
Well, I think, I don't mean to interject.
Sure, Coach Robinson. Go ahead.
You sure?
Yes.
I think it depends on where you go. I mean, and this is not a sales point for Ohio State, but that's not how it goes where I'm at. So you're a student athlete. We cannot tell a student athlete what to major in. We have athletes on our team that's dentists, lawyers, pilots, the whole nine. So I've worked at a couple of universities, and you know, I can only speak about the one that I'm at right now, but you are a student first. We do not tell the athletes what to major in. If you want to major in whatever you want to major in, we will work around your schedule. So I kind of want that to be clear as I'm sitting up here. I don't know what university you guys talking about, but at Ohio State right now, while I'm here, the student comes first, and if you want whatever you want to major in, and I have them. I have pilots, I have dentists, I have the whole nine, and we will. If I have to get up at 5 or 6 in the morning to meet with them, I will, but we're not changing their major. If they want to be some, then they can be that.
Thank you, Cadivis. So, Cadivis, you know, track and field is a unique sport in that, you know, students seem to be able to get sponsored at an early age. Does this seem to contradict that? Does it seem to open that up more? What does that look like in the field of track and field?
I think it depends on the student athlete. You know, some student athletes are, like as he spoke about, are a little bit more savvy than others, and some they kind of see that path. They see where they can benefit, and others don't. So I think it's a good balance, because there are some that may want their picture out there because they're not so popular. And by having their picture and stuff out there, it helps them become more popular. And you know, as business people, we know sometimes you have to give away things for free just so you can kind of get your foot in the door. So I think it depends on each athlete. When I was in school, I wasn't a big time athlete. I didn't take a lot of official visits. I didn't get all of that. I had to take out a loan and all those types of things. So I might not have had the leverage to try to do those things. I just wanted people to know who I was. I was poor. We didn't have a phone. So I'm thinking, like, if it was this time, I probably wouldn't have a phone or internet. So for me, just getting my name, image, and likeness out there would have been personally a benefit for me.
You said, like it's a business. Are you saying that the athlete is a business entity now?
Well, it depends on how they present themselves.
Okay.
Because I think you have to look at it from a standpoint of saying that it's like me when I made the Olympic team, right? Yeah. People say, well, you made the Olympic team and you have to do A, B, and C. Yeah, but I signed up for it, right? So once I signed up for it and I understand that the Olympic team is sponsored by, let's say, Nike, then it's kind of hard for me to go back and complain about having to wear Nike, because I already knew the Olympic team was signed up. But that's kind of part of the deal. Does that make sense? Yeah. So it is it's a slippery slope when you see it from both sides. As a coach, I see it from one side, but as a student athlete, I saw it from another. And when I was just a student athlete, I kind of had that same perspective of, man, they making me do this and I have to do that. But then as I became a coach, then it became a little bit different, because you start seeing the business dynamics. Some of these sponsors pay a certain amount of money to certain schools, or i.e. USA Track and Field. They might give them $500 million to be their sponsor. So now they're expecting you to wear that brand, Yeah. So it's a little bit more complicated than just than what might be out there right now.
Okay, Luke, you want to jump on that, don't you? The business piece, yes.
You saw me like I was listen, right? Because I think there's an interesting kind of distinction here, right? Because you asked, so does that mean that an athlete is a business entity now? And that's a legal question, right? An athlete can choose if they want to set up an LLC, a limited liability company, or a formal business entity to provide them some liability protection, potential tax write-offs, if they're really going to be engaging in name, image, and likeness significantly. But I will say this, if a student athlete decides that they're going to participate in name, image, and likeness in any form, they are instantly a business owner, right? They own the business of what they're doing, because while they're still an amateur, whatever that loose term means these days, if they're still an amateur in their sport, they're most definitely a professional when it comes to the business side of things. Because name, image, and likeness means I'm getting paid for something. And if I'm getting paid for something, I have to provide a service, right? Whether that's social media, making an appearance, autographs, whatever that may be. I have to provide a service, and for that service I provide, I get compensation. And because of that, we have a business transaction. So you're most definitely a business owner. And it's a key for all the young people listening right now to remember that, because the NCAA's rules on impermissible benefits and all that stuff, they're still in play. Exactly. So you can't take money and not provide a service, right? You have to provide the service when it comes to name, image, and likeness.
Okay. That's such a great point. Because I think individuals are not taking into account that there are certain things you can do that can negatively affect you. So, it's not something you just jump out there and think you can do certain things. There's repercussions to everything that you do. So when you start going into that space, it might be a good idea to have proper representation and really understand that space before you jump into that. It's not something you just jump into and think that you can just run with it. So.
Okay. Thank you. We're going to come back to this. This is a question for everyone, because I know everyone's going to have an opinion here. DJ, how do you see colleges using name, image, and likeness as a recruiting tool?
Man, it's going to be huge. Let's take The Ohio State University, for example.
When did it become D, by the way?
But, you take a university like that whose alumni is pretty large, right? So the connections that they're going to be able to have, not just only in the city that the university is in, but all across the country. Okay. So now you have, companies or former alumni that's going to be able to, whether it's throw parties, whether it's throw events, et cetera, to raise money, they could essentially donate money or pour money into local businesses so they can hire other active athletes, right? And so, it can get so deep-rooted, right, where there's other universities right now who don't have that alumni to back them, who don't have those other business opportunities in their city. But for our bigger universities, all right, I think it's still not legal in Georgia. It's I think it's one college that still can't do it. I think they're going to be hurt.
We're going to come to that question.
I don't know if it's Clemson. Okay, yeah. So they're going to be hurt by it as well. So literally, there's going to be state by state in terms of what laws are passed and where. You might can speak on that too. Yeah. But that's definitely going to hurt the recruiting for some, but benefit the others.
Luke, what you think?
Recruiting is everything here. Now let's not forget two things. All right, I'm gonna get into the recruiting. Give me 10 seconds.
Yeah, you guys can leeway.
Because recruiting is something people talk a lot about, and I'm gonna get into it because it's critical. But let's not forget retention too, right? Because now simultaneously we also have changes to the transfer portal rules, right? Yeah. So now student athletes can transfer without having to sit out for a year. Yes. And so now schools have to do a better job of using name, image, and likeness also to retain talent as much as it is to recruit talent. But when it comes to recruiting, every school is using it, and they're trying to figure out how to differentiate name, image, and likeness. Because without going into too much detail, bottom line is the NCAA pushed back to the schools to say, schools, you come up with your own policy as it relates to name, image, and likeness. And if you are a school that's in a state that already has legislation passed, then you have to make sure your policy aligns with state law. If you're a school in a state that hasn't passed it, then you can basically come up with your policy. But because of that now, schools across the country have access to allow their student athletes to do name, image, and likeness. So from a recruiting perspective, they're all trying to find nuances to do things differently to be able to recruit talent, right? So just within the last week, UNC talked about group licensing. They're the first school that has formally put together a school program at Chapel Hill, a school program around group licensing. LSU was one of the first schools that came out here in the last 2 weeks that said, hey, student athletes, you know what? You can use our jerseys. You can do your name, image, and likeness opportunities wearing our marks, right? Michigan, that team up north, right? They're the first school to come out with the whole jersey sale. So to your point earlier now, their authorized dealer, retailer, has said, you know what? A student can make a deal with that retailer where their jersey can be sold and that student athlete gets a percentage of the proceeds. So every school now is saying, okay, now that everybody can do name, image, and likeness, at first we thought it was going to be just some states, now everybody. So now, how can we differentiate ourselves? In recruiting, that's everything. They're finding ways to figure out how can we sell ourselves differently.
As a coach, have you started to see opportunities for you to take advantage of name, image, and likeness as you maybe look at a two-sport athlete to come into to Ohio State and take advantage of that?
Well, That's a loaded question also.
Okay.
Yeah,
Can't
but
touch that one. Got it.
yeah, because it depends on the other sport, right? Okay. So if you have someone that's doing football and then doing track, then you know it gets slippery because you know football is going to come probably first for the most part. So, but I do think it's interesting when you, again, I keep saying this, when you get into that space, because I think my coaching hat's on now, but I think we're not looking at the backside of it. Okay. So whenever you start to, with the recruiting is everything, right? Okay. But when you start having to compensate, you know, the money has to come from somewhere, and that means that somebody's going to suffer. So you know, I think people have to look at it. You know, you can't have it both ways. So the individuals and the groups and the schools that's choosing to go in that direction, what I would say is make sure you have the proper information that he's giving, because that's going to set you up. Because a lot of people are going to go out there and they're going to be kind of on an island, and they're going to find themselves kind of, you know, in a bad situation. So for me, really educate yourself on what it really means, on if it's something you really want to do, if you would really benefit. Because everybody that comes out of high school that goes to college think they're the next big thing, right? You think everyone wants to, you know, buy your jersey, but that's not necessarily the case. Right. You might get out there and you're thinking 1,000 people are going to buy your jersey and only 50. Whereas you're looking at your friend and he got 2,000 people buying his jersey, and now you put yourself in a situation where you're not really benefiting from it, right? So I think those are things that the student athlete has to think about.
Okay. Guys, we've talked a lot about the big schools, Ohio States, Michigans. How can you see schools who are not in the mainstream taking advantage of this here? I'll give an example, and I know you're not at Tiffin anymore, but I'll give an example. If I'm at Tiffin and I'm killing it, isn't there an opportunity for me to take advantage of name, image, and likeness in the Tiffin community? I don't know. Yes? No?
Well, that's where the transfer portal comes in.
Okay.
So yeah, I think yes, it depends on the individual, right? I mean, this all depends on the individual, because name, image, and likeness is going to allow you to be compensated if you have a following or if somebody wants to pay you, right? Like you know, he just said that the money has to come from somewhere. So let's be clear about what we're talking about. Name, image, and likeness is the ability for a student athlete to contract with a third party. So it's not pay for play where the school is paying you, right? It's an independent company. So a company has to say out there, I see enough value of investing in this student athlete that it's going to give me a return on my investment to achieve what I want to achieve from a business perspective, right? So what we've seen, to your question, is there are the NAIA, right? NAIA passed name, image, and likeness a year ago, right? It's been in effect. Chloe Mitchell, female volleyball player at St. Aquinas in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Ever been there? Exactly, right? So small school, but she was a senior in high school last year when the pandemic started. So she started doing videos on TikTok, right? She got up to 3 million viewers, like followers on TikTok, because she was making a she shed, right? So she took a garage, turned it into her space, and got all these followers. So she's been doing name, image, and likeness deals for the last year at an unknown, sorry if there are any St. Aquinas fans out there, but at a relatively obscure school, but doing it because she has a following. So if a student athlete at a small school, you know, at an HBCU, at a lesser, not a Power 5 school, if they have the following or the ability to provide a product, a service, or something that is going to cause someone else to want to put money on the table for that, then yeah, they'll be able to do it.
Park that HBCU piece, we'll come back to it. DJ.
I think what it draws back to is marketability. A lot of kids that are coming out don't even know how to market themselves. They don't know, you know, what are they looking for? Their parents don't know, right? Mom and dad maybe see a wave or entryway into some money, and they just gonna lead the kid that way, right? So I think we have to truly educate, you know, any athlete, especially that are at, you know, the smaller schools, to be able to truly take advantage of them. You know, right? Like, I mean, what can you do? What should you be doing in terms of your social media so it doesn't backfire, right? That other end of, you know, if you do sign these deals and you're not necessarily following through, what type of reputation do you start to, you know, get for yourself if you aren't producing, right? Yeah. You know, you want to come to a situation where you came into some money at a young age and you don't really know how to handle it, so now it messes up some other opportunities in the future for you because you just don't know how to handle it. You haven't been taught to. And so I think that's why it's going to be super important for organizations and people in certain cities to start developing resources that are credible for kids to go to, for parents to go to, get accurate information, all right, so they won't be hung out to dry and be taken advantage of.
Got it.
That's what I think.
Got it. Parking the HBCU question here, coming back to Coach Robinson. We saw recently a couple of collegiate athletes, Athing Mo, who I'm waiting to see her rip it in the Olympics. Athing Mo, Arian Knighton, that announced they're going to turn pro. Do you think this piece with name, image, and likeness will keep those types of athletes still engaged in the collegiate process and competing, or that decision was much greater than the way that they were looking at it in college?
Yeah, you're talking about individuals that are just ridiculously good. So both of them ran pro times in high school for the most part.
Yeah.
So I can't speak for them, but I think they might have had their decision made before they even went to. Well, the guy didn't even go to.
He didn't
even go to college. Yeah. So you get my point. So I think we have to really realize that that's 1 in a million, if that. You know, I mean, so those are exceptions to the rules. But I do think there will be individuals now that maybe think twice before they come out of college early.
Well, to Knighton's point, if he's with Adidas or whomever, couldn't Adidas just still pay him for name, image, and likeness while he's in college and send him to USC?
I think that's when it goes back to the school in the States. You see, that's what I was trying to make. So so we got the coaches here at Ohio State. We got some information on what student athletes would have to do here at Ohio State. I'm not certain that it's the same at other universities, and definitely not sure if it's the same at other states. So that's something that that person would have to go through before they go with that process. So depending on the state, depending on the school, that kind of makes your decision, if you're going to go or not. Now, what he said earlier is, think about it this way. Some schools are getting ahead of the fray. They're saying, okay, we know this is coming. So they're putting things in place so that process won't be so difficult. Those are the ones who are going to win. They put things in place so that they're educating the student athletes so that transformation will be more smooth, so they won't be out there by themselves on an island trying to figure it out on their own.
Okay. You want to jump in there on that?
Of course.
If
you give me the opportunity, come on, man. Of course I'll jump in.
He never met a Mike he didn't like.
That's right. You're right about that. So, to the point, Coach's point is absolutely right. Schools are different. Schools set their own policy, right? And so you bring up this question about, Adidas, right? So that's a big question that comes up a lot. Like, well, what if it's a Nike school and Adidas wants to do a deal with the kid, right? A lot of times that's going to depend on the school's individual policy. But the key, I think, what we're seeing across the board is it just can't conflict. Any deal that a student athlete does cannot conflict with a sponsorship agreement that the school already has in place. So when schools are having student athletes disclose, because you have to disclose all the deals that you're doing, and different schools have different timing on that. Some require 5 days before, some require it no later than 3 days after. But you got to disclose the deals you're doing, and it's so that they can review, not approve, because schools can't get in the process. It's a whole liability issue if they're in the process of saying, yes, you could do this, or no, you shouldn't do this. But when it comes to a review, they're looking to see, is this deal going to conflict with what we already have in place? If a student athlete at Ohio State wants to do an Adidas deal, that language in that contract with the student athlete can't say anything about organized team activities. It can't be anything dealing with, what you wear during post-game or post-match press conferences, while you're on the track, on the court, on the field, whatever. Travel, right, to and from, you have to wear the team-sponsored apparel. And if it says anything other than that, then it'll get kicked back to the student athlete for adjustments.
Okay. Luke, what about the competitive imbalance from states that don't have, equal laws? I think you were alluding to, maybe it was University of Georgia that people were having issues with earlier. I don't know if they've since rectified that. I'm in the SEC. Georgia's state legislature says, no, I got to go with LSU, who's going to let them do whatever.
Yeah.
Are we starting to see that?
So what's interesting about it is the biggest winners in all this were the states that didn't do anything.
Really?
Yeah, because they can create, the schools in those states can create whatever policy they want. So in Florida, the Florida legislature, Florida law, which has set all of this into motion when they said we're moving our effective date to July 1st, 2021. Because don't forget, history lesson real quick, California started all of this.
Right.
But they said we're going to work with the NCAA and we're going to make our law, which passed easily, we're going to make that go into effect in 2023. It was Florida that said, you know what, we're going to do the same thing. We're making it July 1st, 2021. That's what caused such a commotion over the last 12 months. Okay. So Florida's law actually says you are required to have X number of hours of financial literacy education. You can't do deals with boosters to the school and things like that. That's what their law says. So now Florida, Miami, Florida State, et cetera, schools in the state of Florida their name, image, and likeness policy has to follow that law. So they can't do deals with boosters. They can't, they have to have certain requirements. States that had no law in effect, they can come up with their policy that basically says, hey, student athletes, you can do name, image, and likeness within some certain guardrails that we'll put in place.
Okay. Anybody want to jump into that? Anything you said?
I just think, too, going back to, in terms of benefiting, I think about a track athlete, this is what's on top of my mind, the track athletes and them not having any face covering. Think about basketball, not having any face coverings, et cetera. I think about football, you have this helmet on, and it's kind of obscured, view in a sense, and I think that ultimately is going to affect the way some of these deals are done as well. I think, again, if you're on the elite side of things, I think about Johnny Manziel, he would have got paid no matter what, right? His personality, et cetera, his following, but I also think it will ultimately have an effect on companies, no different than it has in the NFL and the NBA, with dudes with certain deals and track athletes getting earlier deals. I think that will also come to a fold a little bit.
Coming back at you, DJ, what sports outside of football and basketball, the revenue sports, do you think someone can take advantage of this new ruling?
Man, I'm so golf. I think that's going to be a sport, that can take off. I'll be interested to see hockey, and where that goes. I'll be also interested in volleyball. I was talking to, one of my good friends whose daughter, she plays at Georgia Tech right now, and so, she's phenomenal. She's going to her sophomore year next year. Yeah, sophomore year, but she's great. She's dope. She made first team, and she's in marketing, etc. Yeah. And man, I think that she's gonna have an opportunity to really benefit from it. So I think, again, some of those sports where, it's kind of individual performance-wise. You think about Tiger and just a lot of the other guys that was coming out. I mean, they're going to be the ones that can really take advantage of this.
Okay. Anybody else?
You gotta have a personality.
So
if you have a personality and you have the skill set to market yourself and do those types of things, then it doesn't matter the sport really, right? So the example he gave about having the young lady from the NAIA school or something like that, well, she had that skill set, because it's still a skill set now. You ain't just showing up, and you have to either be good, extremely good, or you have to be able to kind of market yourself. And we all know, we hear the stories. You heard it years ago, a tennis player. She wasn't that good in tennis, but she was good at marketing herself, and she made a lot of money and all that type of stuff. So that's part of the game now. Unfortunately, when we was younger, man, you had to be good. All that other stuff, you can crack jokes and look good, and people are like, can you put the ball in the hoop? Yeah. So to me, that's the key. Being able to really market yourself, have a personality. Listen, if Usain Bolt played basketball and he was just kind of good, he still would have been all right because he had a good personality. People liked him. They liked the fact that he's on the line, dapping up the person and all those types of things. So you have to be good, you have to know how to market yourself, but you have to be likable.
Luke?
The number one team in terms of social media impressions last year, UCLA women's gymnastics.
Wow.
Number one team. And so because, and this is where, the coach's point, absolutely right? That it's about the individual or it's about the team, right? Because one of the things that has been that's been kind of documented is that women's sports and women's student athletes oftentimes are more engaging with their fans and their audience on social media than men's players are, right? And so when you look at even during this last Final Four, earlier this year, just a couple months ago, when they did the value of the social media of all the teams, men's and women's, that were in their teams' Final Fours, right. It was like of the top 20, it was, 14 were women. Wow. Right? Because they engage with their audience. And when you think about it, why is a brand paying, somebody to represent them? Right. They're paying them because I think that you can get me to an audience that I want to sell to, right? You're ultimately going to have to give me a return on my investment. This isn't just like free money, like, oh, you have 1 million followers. I'd rather, a lot of brands would rather see, instead of 50,000 followers, they'd rather see, 10,000 that are highly engaged, right? Because that's 10,000 eyeballs, sets of eyeballs that I can get my product in front of, or my service in front of, or whatever it is that I'm getting you to promote. As opposed to, a lot of times if you just have a number of followers and you're not really engaged with your followers, right. And they're just kind of fans that just, following you but not engaged and engaging with you in the conversation, it's not as valuable. Brands are looking for a return on their investment.
Yeah. Coach, it's early, but have you had to wrestle with or deal with or process the conversation with any of your current athletes?
On the name? No. Yeah. Not so far.
Okay.
And because I have to.
Because you got a couple Olympians on the team. I don't know if that was, but.
Yeah, but see, the space is so early. You have to be educated you have to, the rules, I mean, they're ever changing, man. So it's like you have to really know this space before you start kind of like giving out that type of advice. So what we would do, like you said earlier, we have a compliance department. We have these different departments that know the rules a little bit better than I do. So if I don't have the answer to it, I send them to the professionals.
For the audience, tell the story about the young lady in the Doritos commercial.
Yeah, that was smart. Yeah. So we had a young lady that went to school here at Ohio State, but she's finishing. She's a pro. So when she was competing at the Olympic trials, she wore some earrings that was like Doritos, you know. And this is before she even made the team. And great thing is that she ended up making the team, and obviously Doritos came back and said, "Hey, let's do some stuff together." You know. And so she's a great girl, very smart, you know, beautiful girl in the whole nine. So all of those things help out, and she's well spoken. She has charisma and all those types of things. So that's what I'm talking about, being proactive and having a business mindset. The game is chess, not checkers, right? She thought 3 steps ahead. She said, "Now think about this. If I wear these earrings and I make the team."
So it was calculated.
Of course.
So if she was still a student athlete, could she have taken advantage of the Doritos deal?
You know what? I think there's something in place that maybe she could have, but she would have had to do what he said, where you go and you present that to the powers that be and see if it makes sure it doesn't conflict with the university.
Okay.
Yeah.
Here's a scenario. I am the, the Sugar Bowl sponsor for the Sugar Bowl. And your top athlete from Ohio State says, "I want to sit out and not go play in the game." Can the Sugar Bowl engage an athlete, the sponsor, the sugar company, and pay that athlete to play, say they don't sit out their senior year or sit out that bowl game? No. They cannot?
Nope. So there's, so when it comes to name, image, and likeness, the compensation can have nothing, it has to have nothing to do with their performance in their sport. So you can't pay them to play, you can't pay them based on the number of shots they made. You know how, like in the NFL right now, like, you know, maybe there'll be organizations that'll make a donation, right? The NFL will make a donation for every field goal or for every touchdown scored or interception or whatever it is. Right. None of that in college sports. So there can't be any compensation tied to their actual performance on the field.
What about not the performance on the field? What about just even competing?
No.
No. Okay. All right.
Think about it though. So if that sponsor was to say they're going to pay, and this is just a conversation like Trevor Lawrence, right?
Yeah.
To not play, that's going to affect the whole game.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying? So there's other repercussions, that can happen from that. You know, you can have people gambling. I mean, it's a lot of stuff that can go into that. So it's important to note that distinction.
Okay, got it. DJ, you work with a lot of athletes, graduating seniors in college. Have you given these young men any advice or counsel as it relates to name, image, and likeness or the possibilities? Have they come back and asked you questions about this at any point? Is it still too new for them to fully understand it?
I think it's very new for them. And, you know, like I told them, you know, we're not the experts. You know, we speak a lot to, you know, how are you presenting yourself now? Are you set up now to even take advantage of opportunities, right?
Are you set up now like a business? You mentioned that? Yes, go ahead.
Earlier, for sure. So I think we focus with our youth right now and our kids who are either going on our way to school right now or in school right now. Hey, are you set up to take advantage of any deal? You know what I mean? And so how does your social media account look? You know, what things are you talking about? What things are you reposting? I had one of my kids, he reposted one of his boys for his birthday, and he on there, and seemingly, you know, they got, you know, some play guns, and it's just like, but that's my dude. I just wish him have. It's just like you got to be so conscious of things that you're putting out into the atmosphere because it could potentially affect your pockets now. Wow. You know, if you're serious about taking advantage of your name, image, and likeness, and you're good enough. So again, I think everything that we've talked to our athletes about is at the base level, and one of our parents. Just really trying to get them acclimated into some additional resources with the compliance.
It's important, absolutely.
Yeah, you know, because I think parents are going to honestly play a role in this. Again, good or bad. Good or bad, I think parents are going to play a huge role.
Luke, do you see yourself, I talk about just the business and are you set up, do you see athletes now set up either LLCs or nonprofit organizations as they're coming from high school to college so they can have the business structure, the shell set up, or is that too presumptuous?
So, yes, I'm seeing it, but I'm seeing it with the elite of the elite, right? Okay. So we're talking about, I mean, the elite of the elite athletes at the high school level transitioning into college, or the elite of the elite at the college level now. setting up an LLC to provide some liability protection, to provide some potential tax benefit, to have, some anonymity on some certain kind of business things. An LLC is definitely something that, a route that some athletes are taking.
What ramifications are there for high school athletes? When can they start taking advantage of name, image, and likeness? Either in high school or during the season or at some point just when the season's over with, but still in high school? What does that look like?
I mean, you're like a really good interviewer. These are some
just,
deep, some deep penetrating questions.
I'm here. We're here.
Because it's a tough one, right? And it's a tough one for a couple reasons. So if you're talking about high school and you're talking about public high school, so you're talking about your high school athletic associations, the National Federation of High Schools, their executive director, which that's the association overall of like OHSAA, Florida's High School Athletic Association, all the schools, right? All the states. They have said, student athletes, you cannot participate in name, image, and likeness at the high school level, right?
Okay.
And they are very definitive about that. Being a lawyer, I think that could very easily be challenged in a whole host of different ways.
Sure.
But what we are seeing, though, is that these high school athletic associations are having conversations, because the reasons they have the limitations in their own high school rules is because of eligibility. But if eligibility isn't affected now at the NCAA level for being able to earn compensation for the services you provide, then that changes the game a little bit. But what we have seen, though, is at the private school, at the high school level, for private schools and prep schools, name, image, and likeness, absolutely, and moving forward with it, right? So Mikey Williams, all right, he's a sophomore going into, he's about to be a junior basketball player, one of the biggest names in high school basketball in the country, just signed with Excel Sports Management, which is a huge sports agency in the basketball space out of New York, to literally find him opportunities over the next couple of years.
Wow.
And again, let's not forget too, at the elite level, we're talking about the game is changing, right? So the G League has started their professional pathways program on the basketball side. Over time, Elite has started where 16, 17, 18-year-olds at the high school level can start getting paid as a professional basketball player. So we've got 7-7 on the football side that's starting to change some things as well. So sports generally is changing. And what I think is important to remember is that name, image, and likeness it's a tool, it's a conduit, it's a platform to allow a student athlete to be empowered to earn compensation, but also to learn the business side of the world, right? Like, if you think about it, I talked to a lot of student athletes. Just over the last week and a half, we've talked to probably 6 or 7 different Power 5 basketball programs and football programs. And what we talk about is use name, image, and likeness as an opportunity to understand business formation, entrepreneurship, marketing, sales, right? All of these classes that your school has offered that maybe you've shied away from, take them, because now they affect you and you can learn from it.
Right. I appreciate that. I want to ask one more question. I'll come to the audience, begin asking questions, so think about that. Cadivis, what is the process for communicating with the compliance department about issues with name, image, and likeness? Is that something you guys have to do, or the athlete then reports directly to the compliance department as they get opportunities? Do you know that yet?
Yeah, if they come to us, then we send them to the right avenue, right? We send them to the people that would have that information. It's all still new, and there's rules that we don't know all the answers to all the rules, right? So we just make sure they get to the right avenues, the right people to get the right answers. But I wanted to piggyback on something he said. I believe a distracted mind is a defeated mind, right? And so what I mean by that is, I think we've seen over the years a lot of professional athletes that went to school for 4 years and graduated and became pros, and within 5 to 7 years, they're broke. And so they wasn't able to manage their money because they didn't have business skills. So now we're saying we're going to allow athletes from high school and not even going to college to have an opportunity to make money, and we're overlooking, are they going to have the business skills to be able to not get cheated out of their money before they even get out of college?
That's an issue.
So I think that's one thing to think about. I think we need to look at, now you're going to have people in their ears when they're sophomores in high school, juniors in high school, and seniors in high school. Is that actually going to be good for them? So it's very important that the parents, the agents, the lawyers, and everybody involved with them to make sure that they have everything in place before they move forward. I always joke and I say this. Listen, I'm from the inner city, south side of Fort Worth, Texas. I'm from the gutter. I had nothing. If you would have taken me as a junior or a senior to 100,000 people at a football game and took me to a party where it's 15 girls and asked me to sign to go to their school, I would have signed right there. I wouldn't even call my mom. I'd be like, I'm signing. So what am I saying? Are we really at that age able to make those types of decisions.
Right.
Now, I happen to be privy to the information of being a coach, but I know this. I'm not living in the neighborhood I'm living in, sending my kids to private schools, living in certain areas so they can go to certain schools just to send them off to any old college and any old coach. So I think that's something you need to think about, because it's one thing to have the money and make the money, it's another thing to keep that money. And we're seeing what those numbers are. So I'm hoping that the agents, I'm hoping that the lawyers, and I'm hoping that the parents are doing their due diligence, because there's a lot of people that might not have their best,
Absolutely.
Their best, life
Absolutely.
in hand. So
And Luke, we talked about this, you need to have these professional advisors, these attorneys, these financial advisors who've got years and experience on them, and you're 17, 18, 19, 20-year-old young man or woman. Yeah. How do you do that?
Well, hold on. I got to cut you off.
Okay.
You said you got to have these lawyers, agents, and people that has all this experience. That's not what I'm just saying.
Okay, what are you saying then?
They have to be moral individuals. Because having the experience, they can have the experience to rob you. They can have the experience to cheat you out of the stuff before you even get it.
Yes.
So everybody's sitting there saying, I have the experience and I know how to do the NLI, I
Yes.
know how to do all this type of stuff. But we need somebody that knows how to do it, that's going to make sure that you're all right, that's going to put you first.
But the young person and the family have to also have that type of experience and expertise and awareness to ask those qualifying questions, don't they?
Yeah, would you 15 years old?
No, I wouldn't, but my parents would have.
You think?
Well, yeah, I think I do.
Because you got to remember so let me ask you something. So,
Yeah.
this man is smart.
Well, yes.
And he's smooth. You know what I'm saying?
He is smart and smooth.
Say it again for the people in the back.
Smart and smooth.
So he started talking
He started-
and throwing out some of those big words.
Yeah.
I don't know what he's saying. I'm just like, this dude know what he's talking about. He's a good dude.
Yeah.
And the next thing, and I'm not saying you'll do that. You get my point.
No. I'm jumping out my seat. I'm ready to go.
Yeah,
I got something for you.
So if he wanted to get me,
Because you trust him, because he's smooth. And, yes.
But y'all getting what I'm saying?
Pretty
I'm
rich.
not saying he's one of those individuals that'll do it, but I'm saying that's something to think about.
But listen, okay, you guys put me in a comfortable chair. I want to sit on the edge of this chair.
Do it, Luke.
because
Come
I'm
on,
fired
Luke.
up. What you're bringing up right now is the critical, importance of what we're talking about here. You asked a question at first about compliance, right?
Yeah.
Compliance doesn't know. They don't understand name, image, and likeness. I work with compliance departments across the country, have these conversations. I ask, how many times have you ever seen, who in here has ever seen a brand ambassador agreement, a social media influencing agreement, a sports marketing agreement? None of them, right? At best, they've seen their school's sponsorship agreement with a corporate sponsor that they have, right? Okay, so then we look at where else are you going to get the information? To your point, right? Typically, a lot of people are getting their information and education from people who are impacted by the outcome of the decision that they make. Right? So it's the agent, it's the person that's trying to get them to do something that's the one that's bringing the education. Right. That's why sessions like this, discussions like this is critically important. You've got to be able to look at independence, objectivity, and an unbiased nature, right? So as a lawyer, I don't care with my clients. I don't care whether they do this deal or that deal. I don't care if they go with this agent or that agent. I've got my personal opinion on different agents, and sometimes they'll ask me for my opinion because I've engaged with them on a regular basis with other clients. But at the end of the day, what I care most about is, are they getting the information and education they need to be able to make an informed decision? And I will have anyone that I talk to anybody that I've worked with in the past to be able to understand, is this someone I can trust? And that's where I think student athletes and parents especially, because parents don't know this business either. Right. This is going to be the first time they've seen a deal, the first time they've had an agent. And one of the questions I always ask young people all the time, and I ask people in here, who in here has ever said no to money? Have you ever said no to money? Right? Some of us have, right? In different situations in life, but it's hard to say no to money. So let an agent come and say, hey, mom and dad, you know what? Listen, sign with me. I'm going to keep you protected. Oh, and by the way, I'm going to give you a $50,000 advance on your marketing right now. Here's the cash in this bag right now. And now guess what? That's always happened in sports, but now it can be happening legally, right? So now you have to think about, okay, what is it? What is the vessel? Who is the person I'm actually receiving this information from? And what impact does it have on them based on the decision that I make? You've got to be able to find those independent, objective advisors, and organizations like MBK play a role in helping to educate and provide a platform like this for the education of our young people.
Now I'm excited. I want to get on the edge of my seat. Let's go.
Go.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. Yes. Okay, to the audience, are there any questions from the audience? Anyone that would like to ask a question? You do, don't you? Yes, I think you do. If you don't mind, go to the microphone and ask the question so that the folks at home can hear the question as well.
Do you mind if I read this?
I do not mind. I do not mind.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mayan Turner, senior business marketing major at Morehouse College. My question is for Luke Fedlam. So you talked about brands are looking for a return on their investment with student athletes, and my question is, will name, image, likeness have an effect on players' playing time because of some actually getting paid and some players not getting paid?
So, great question. And when you think about this, this is on our coaching staff, right? This is on the school. When it comes to playing time, that's a coach's decision. And the coaches are going to have a lot to figure out when it comes to name, image, and likeness, right? You're going to have to think about playing time, right? Obviously, they want to win. They want to do whatever it takes to win because that's how they keep their jobs. That's how they make money. But you also have the locker room dynamic, right? So maybe I've got one or two players in the locker room that are making money and others aren't. And how do I manage that as a coach, right? But guess what? That's what you get paid the big bucks for, right? That's what your job is. Your job, and I'll share this with people because it does come up quite a bit, right? Like, how are you going to manage the locker room? You know, some people are going to be getting money, some aren't and everything. That's what they've been doing. They've had to manage the locker room. You've always had stars on your team that are going to do more interviews, get more press, be on the cover of the sports section of whatever, you know, maybe be on the cover of Sports Illustrated, whatever it is, even before name, image, and likeness came into effect. And they've had to manage that. They've had to be able to manage that aspect. They're going to have to continue to do that. What I think will be interesting to get deeper into the question that you asked is, what impact will it actually have on student athletes deciding, do I want to transfer because I'm a backup at this school, but if I go to that school, I can be a starter and maybe have more opportunity to have, you know, name, image, and likeness opportunities presented to me.
Thank you. I also have one more question.
Yes.
For Coach. Are coaches going to push their students, athletes to get their name out there more, like post more on social media, be more active when people are coming to talk to you or anything like that?
I think it depends on the coach. Some probably will and some won't.
Yeah, what about you?
No, I'm a big person on being an individual. So I like individuals to be themselves, and I think the better version of yourself is gonna show out. I don't believe that God. My own personal philosophy is God's not gonna give me something that belongs to someone else, and not gonna give someone else something that belongs to me. So trying to do all that extra stuff, to me, is a distraction, and a distracted mind is a defeated mind. So I tell if someone's coming to me right now and they're like top 10 in the conference, and they asking me about name, image, and likeness, my natural response would be, man, let's be top 3 in the nation first. You know, let's focus on the goal at hand before we start thinking about all of that. That's me. That doesn't mean it's the right thing to do. That doesn't mean everyone would say that. But for me personally, I tell my son that. My son's, he's 13. He plays a lot of sports, and he's already thinking about being whatever, when he's a senior. And I'm like, dude, just be the best in middle school. Right. And then we'll worry about being the best in high school when you get to high school. Right. So that's the way I approach things.
Got it. Thank you, fellas.
Thank you. And this is my last question.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead, Mr. Turner. There's a lot of things they say about a Morehouse guy.
Yeah. But anyways, for this is as well for you, Coach. What is Ohio State doing to educate their players on handling the name likeness situation?
Yeah, so we have the school itself has some things in place. Ohio State's really good at that, good at having either seminars or classes or places you can go to get the information you need about each activity. So that's what we have in place now. Like you said, it's very, very, very new. So anything that we don't have, they sent us out a memo with information to help us, to help the coaches to know what to do in certain situations. And obviously, if we don't have all the answers, we push them toward the people that do have the answers. Because I think we have to really realize this is not something you just kind of just do because you think you're popular and you can make a lot of money. This is a business decision, and it affects a lot of different things. And as he said about, these businesses want to return on their investment. They're not saying you can wear that number, your jersey, your number, just because they like you. They're wanting to see, if it's, let's say, a Nike, Adidas, or Reebok, are you going to help them sell more apparel, right? And sometimes we don't want to hear this, but, the number 11 might be you now, but when you gone, somebody else put that number 11 on. If they got better, skills than you have or more numbers, they're going to be cheering for them, And that's just being real. Let's call it what it is. Right. So I think the main thing that Ohio State has in place is for those student athletes to go to the places that they can get that information. The information is out there, just like everything in life. But you still have to go to it and get the information. Once you have the information, you have to process it. And once you process it, you have to apply it. That's a skill set.
Got it.
So I'll just add one thing to that too. So, because I got to give a plug, right? So we're working with Ohio State around educating their student athletes when it comes to name, image, and likeness. Right now, we've started since the beginning of July working with football and basketball, men's and women's basketball, because they're on campus now. But once the school year starts and all student athletes are back, then we'll be doing more education with them as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Turner. Anybody else from the audience want to ask a question? Yes. Thank you, sir. Oh, I'm sorry.
No worries.
The microphone, he liked that one.
The mic is hot.
I'm a little.
Yes,
Excuse
sir.
me. This is for Brother Fedlam and DJ. I kind of touched on it earlier. A lot of our students are getting younger in terms of their social media presence. You touched on it briefly about Mikey Williams being the first high school athlete. And I read an article where they said probably Bronny James and Mikey Williams are probably the two most high school students who can make money off of their name, image, and likeness. When we look at how can we prepare our students and families that are younger, especially from our most vulnerable areas such as the inner city, who have to make decisions for their family, most likely economically, in terms of the names, image, and likeness. I know, DJ, you see it, you coach on the younger athletes. How do we then prepare families and students who are then going to make decisions about where they should go in university or what contracts they should take, especially coming from kids from inner city? Like I said, a lot of these athletes make decisions that impact financially how their family's monetary, how the finances impact their family going forward.
I guess I'll start off first. I was a first generational college student. I remember I went on an official visit to Notre Dame. I went to Michigan, went to Florida, University of Florida, University of Minnesota. Every single visit that I had different people with me that was just as mesmerized as I was. Nobody was asking the real questions. Nobody cared. We get our own hotel room. We get to eat whatever we want to eat. I mean, they were just as blown away as me. And so I think looking back on it now, nobody was really truly looking out for me. They was just along for the ride. You know what I mean? And so not because, like, I don't think it was malicious, so to speak. They just didn't know what they didn't know. Nobody had ever been on that stage before to know what to ask, right? So I think when you talk about our inner city kids, the ones who don't have the natural resources, right? We're going to have to be, we are going to have to be very intentional with our programming, such as what we're doing now, at formalizing what that support system look like and intentionally placing it in areas so our young people could be impacted, all right, so they can have the information. Emails, right? Emails is kind of fake, but we need stuff going right directly in people's hands, our kids' hands. We need boots on ground, individuals, going out to these schools, speaking with, parents face to face to actually have the true impact that we need to have. So I think that, we're going to have to put, again, together a support group that's able to reach these young people at an early age. And again, their parents who are influencing, like we talked about up here in numerous ways, who are influencing these decisions, right? Until we're able to really touch in and hone in on that aspect, I think that they're going to be more vulnerable, will continue to be vulnerable, especially when cash is thrown in the mix.
Right.
Yeah, I think the education is everything. I couldn't co-sign, any stronger. You've got to be able to educate, and it's not just educating the student athlete, it's educating the parents. Because let's not forget, when we're talking about high school student athletes, most of them are minors, so it's the parent that's actually gonna have to sign whatever contracts for deals that get presented. So parents have got to understand that. And so when you think about that, there's we've created a curriculum, but there's a lot of different areas that we could focus on, but thinking about things like decision making, thinking about due diligence, like how do you investigate people that want to, or analyze people that want to work with you, thinking about money, right? And not just financial literacy of like, this is, maybe you start with financial literacy in terms of like, this is checking, this is savings, this is what credit means, this is, all these kinds of stuff, but you've got to then move very quickly into, this is how you actually think about managing money, right? Because side note, which a lot of student athletes and sometimes parents don't recognize is that every single payment that you get with name, image, and likeness, you get paid in gross, which means you get the total amount, right? Taxes are not withheld, right? And taxes it's a big deal, right? It's a really big deal. And so if you think about this, you're going to be in a situation, you have student athletes who will be in a situation where they might make 10, 20, 50, whatever, thousands of dollars. And on April 15th, they're going to have a bill that comes due, right, for a significant amount. And so helping to understand how do you even manage money, and then understanding contracts. So there have to be platforms like this. We're talking to like AAU schools as well. I mean, AAU teams. We're talking to different groups of young people trying to continue to share the message. But the way I look at it is this, to your question. I think that there is an opportunity for schools, for organizations, for government to come together to say, we're putting together curriculum that if you're a student athlete that ultimately ends up making money off of name, image, and likeness, great. And these skills, this curriculum is going to help you to do that. It's going to help keep you protected, and it's going to help prepare you. But even if not, even if you're not going to be one of those student athletes that makes money, guess what? You still got some life skills that are going to help you as you navigate life and figure out the people that want to be around you, or maybe entrepreneurship ideas that you might have, or how do I just manage my money in a better way? But it's got to start with education.
And to that piece, I'm saying this, but I've been talking about it here. I'm committed to that MBK will act as that conduit for education and leverage and amplify these voices moving forward. If we got to come back and it's just these three and myself on the table here, and we can amplify that message out every quarter, every 6 months, because we do have to make sure that all young folks are college and career ready, not just our young men, but our young women, and because these are affecting households and ultimately affect the community. So to the piece about the education, that's important. And we've got a platform to do that. We can bring the people together. We're going to do that. So it is important.
That's what, and we had this conversation last week, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Me, you, and I can't think of her name.
Yes, Julia.
Julia, we had the same conversation. So I think organizations like this is important that maybe you can implement it in the community.
Absolutely.
I'm not giving you extra work to do,
No,
but
of course not.
you can implement it in the community so they can come here
Right.
face to face and see someone and get that information.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you, Chris. Anybody else have a question? If so, Creed, yes.
My name's Krishan Cole. I'm the Youth Engagement Specialist at the Columbus Library, for the Columbus Library System. My question is an open question. It's kind of like a caveat off of his question. What type of initiative do you think high schools and city public institutions should take? Basically like the recreational centers, the libraries can take in order to prepare student athletes for the contractual agreements and the legal jargon they'll be facing. And I have another question after that, but that's number
Directed to anybody in particular, or
just open.
Okay.
Yep, have at it.
So, I mean, that legal jargon, dang lawyers, always writing that stuff up. Listen, I think everything that we just talked about, right, in the last piece, I think is critical. I think it's going to take organizations coming together, right, whether it's, civic organizations, private organizations, et cetera, coming together to say, how can we create, the educational opportunities necessary to be able to navigate this, right? I mean, contracts, I'll be honest with you, and when I talk contracts with student athletes, and I just did a presentation this afternoon with some college basketball players, they're like, this is all brand new. We don't even know what we're supposed to be looking for. We don't understand what it says, what it means. And I said, great, let's start breaking some pieces down. And we literally just talked through 3 or 4 parts of a contract, right? And what they actually mean, what impact it could have, what's normal in the industry versus what's not normal, why do you need to understand it, how you could negotiate it, right? And just starting one by one by one, right? You're not going to become a contract lawyer overnight, right? Now, if you have an opportunity that's being presented to you that's significant, it may be worth you hiring a lawyer to help you navigate that. But just in terms of preparing yourself to your question, it's education, and it's meeting students where they're at. It's meeting young people where they're at in a way that they can consume that information to be able to, 1, be motivated to continue to learn more, and 2, be able to think about, now I'm starting to understand what questions to ask, because I don't know what I don't know, and I don't always know what questions I should even be asking. But if I'm getting some of that exposure to that education, I can start to learn that aspect.
Right. And Creed, we've got to tap into these local communities, these centers of influence. So you're with the library system. That's a center of influence you've got that you can emanate your education out from that point. And how do we make sure we connect all these different centers of influences so that our community is addressed and spoken to holistically? And so you've got a valuable presence that you can have and play a role in that part as well.
Definitely.
So to just piggyback off them, one thing I like to add is that the individuals who have the power to make decisions have to understand the influence that sports has on our community. Sports is the driving vehicle, all right, to abundance of resources and connections and opportunities, right? We don't tell our student athletes, hey, you're not gonna make it, you're not good enough. We often embed into them, what are you gonna do when you're done, right? So we're not saying that you ain't gonna make it, we're just saying, hey, the average NBA career, about 3. If you're really good, 5, 6, right? 17, 18-year career with LeBron, no, that's not normal, right? All right, you have to be Tom Brady level to get to 16, otherwise it's 2.5 years. So I think that in order for, our community to really start to have the impact that we have to have, I think that we really start to saying, hey, we get participation from over 10,000, it's over 10,000 youth right now, both young men and young women, that are participating in youth sports right now, just in the inner city of Columbus. It's over 10,000. What are we actually doing with them, though? How are we actually impacting them? Because we know less than 2% of youth athletes all across this country is going pro or going to the Olympics. So if they're coming to practices Monday through Thursday, 2 and 3 hours, all day Saturday and Sunday games, they're traveling, playing AAU tournament, except the sports is just a vehicle to get, because they're showing up for that, right? So how do we take them at that point and then feed them other information that's going to be useful for them? They might not understand it's going to be useful, but they will as they get older.
You got a large footprint yourself, DJ.
Well, yeah. I want to pick it back. I think the best vehicle is to have something in place and have it be consistent. What do I mean by that? I mean, if you're in the library, have a day in the library that's similar to this, maybe different information, and it's every Sunday. So they know every Sunday we're going to have something there for you that you can get this information. Because think about it. I mean, Jesse Owens went to Ohio State in the 1930s or whatever it was. So how is it that he went to Ohio State in the 1930s? It's 2021, and we still got the same questions on what people should do to go to college. I mean, come on. Right. Mm-hmm. And you're saying how we got to give them that information, but here's the reality. Let's be real. When I was a kid, coaches was an extension of the family. My mom could leave with my coach. She could be late picking me up, and she knew I was going to be fine. Yeah. And coaches really cared. We really cared. And I'm not saying coaches now don't care, but it's a job, man. If you're not winning, that's it. So we can't depend on others to feel about our students and our communities the way that we are. It's a different dynamic, it's a different environment, it's a different space. So just you might or I might have a student athlete and feel like, okay, I'm navigating them so they can be a better human being, where somebody else only can see them as, are you going to rush for 100 yards? Or are you going to score 20 points? Because if you're not going to score 20 points and rush for 100 yards, you're going to get me fired. But we don't see that. See, my coaches, no matter if I ran well or did well, it didn't matter. They wanted me to be a good human being. Absolutely. So we can't keep saying that the powers that be or these people, because they're not, it's been like from 1930s, it hasn't happened. So now it's time for us to step up and put things in place. So how do you do it? We have programs like this, we have the library, and it needs to be consistent, because when things are not consistent, people don't know where to find it. That's one of the big things about football. We know every Sunday, football game's coming on. Right. That's the challenge I think we have is track, because people don't know when to find track. Right. When they're gonna have a track meet, they know the Olympics every 4 years. Right. 2 weeks every 4 years. So if we have a library or something, they say every Sunday or once every Sunday, one Sunday every month, we're going to have these things in place. The parents and the kids know where to go to get that. Consistency. Yeah. And it's open to the whole community, and now they can get that information and then get the questions answered. Got it. Thank you.
I really appreciate the answers, guys. Part of my job is to kind of come up with new ways to initiate the teens and the youth, including the athletes of the neighborhood. So that's a really good point you made, Coach. The second question is, I heard you guys talk about how private schools are going to allow, like certain areas, private schools are allowing their students to monetize off of name, image, and likeness, yet then the public school systems are saying, that's a no-go. The first thing that comes to my mind about that is like a lot of like the star athletes and stuff coming out of middle school and stuff like that. Do you think, similar to how college can be swayed depending on opportunity, it'd be the same in a high school dynamic? And DJ, you spoke about how important sports is in the inner city community. I went to Walnut Ridge, so I can attest to that. And I just wanted to get a tidbit of like what you guys think.
Yeah, I think what you're going to see at the high school level is kind of some of the same things at the college level that we were seeing just over the last 6 months, right? Which was you had certain states that were saying, hey, we're going to authorize name, image, and likeness. And instantly everybody knew that's going to be a recruiting advantage, right? So if you are in a situation where once one high school athletic association says, yeah, I mean, absolutely you can do name, image, and likeness. It's not an eligibility issue. all of them will do that, right? So we're going to, I think we'll see that shift, because to be honest with you, I think it's probably just a lawsuit away, or, you know, a state, you know, executive director of a high school athletic association saying, yep, there's no problems with this, and they move forward.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate y'all time. If that's
Any other questions? Yes.
Hey, how's it going? I'm Demetrius Carter. I'm the co-executive director of the HBCU Ambassadors Initiative, and I also lead off vendor management for Jobs and Family Services in the state of Ohio. My first question, I have two also. That's a running topic now, isn't it?
We'll take it.
So my first question is more so, the conversation is around name, image, and likeness, and we all know that 99%, 98% of student athletes don't necessarily even make it to pro. My question is more geared towards how, you know, coming from our community, how to get that bag right as a 98%er, and how should they be training their eye? So really, to double click into that, we talked about education and how we spread this message out. But as we look at all of these different institutions, I call it the triangle. You got the student athletes and their parents, and then you have the institutions and then the organizations that are third parties. Either they're small businesses, they're medium-sized businesses, they're sports agents, or whoever they are. You know, how do we start to think about education from this perspective of, Coach, you said that, you know, back in the day, the coach was an extension of your family. Well, now they're your partner. You got to do business different with, you know, family when y'all got money involved. How should we be thinking about that?
Anybody?
Well, it takes a village to raise a child, right? So again, I think what we're finding, they say more money, you know, more problems, right? As money gets introduced to things get very, you know, blurry, right? So we have to bring it back to the level where it's a caring. And that's what I'm saying here, library, these types of programs. Because as you go the next level, now coaches are getting paid. And I'm a coach, I'm not saying me, I'm not saying the coaches I know, I'm just saying let's be real. Agents are getting paid, lawyers are getting paid. So when money gets involved, it gets blurry. So I think it has to come from individuals and organizations like yourself, where you're doing it for the student athlete. And making sure those things are really in place. To me, that's the only way.
Yeah.
And Luke can go, but I think honestly, it's going to take more people who's actually been there and done it to actually come back and give the real, authentic versions of what's true. I don't think you have enough individuals that have been there and done it that's even willing to come back. I don't think that I think that those individuals. And, you know, not one of them. I always tell my kids, whether you succeed or not, you know, it's not predicated on my lifestyle and what I will or won't do, right? I tell my kids that, I tell my parents that, but there are individuals out there, all right, who are, you know, dependent on this particular kid here to be successful for their business venture or whatever it may be. But I ultimately think that there's enough people from our community, and we have to find a way, and we've started doing it in different patches, but collectively as a unit, more collaboration over competition, right? And so once we bring all these minds together and all these people together, and we drive, you know, we have this driving force, I'm keeping you accountable. You got your program, you run with your kids, you got your program, we run this up, but we're keeping each other accountable. So if I see you doing something that's really not in the best interest of a kid, I got to be able to call you out on that, right? Like, so I think that we have to have this self-policing of ourselves too, to make sure that we're giving back in the right way, introducing people to valid resources, right? Hey, I vouch for him. I got 10 other people that's going to speak the same language from him. You know, I think we have to start developing that.
Collaboration, not competition. I like that. Were you going to jump in that, Luke?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So one of the things you talked about, you know, how do we get that 98%, like, you know, to secure the bag and everything, right? I think one of the things we have to recognize is, are you securing the bag or are you securing an investment? And name, image, and likeness allows the opportunity for an investment. And here's what I mean by that. When I'm talking to student athletes, I'm talking to them about, you have a branding opportunity. If somebody's going to pay you to do something, then you should talk to every single person that is involved on that company's side. Find out if you can do some shadowing experiences, right? Talk to them about some mentorship. Talk to them about how did they get to where they are. Leverage that opportunity to, instead of just sending the 5 social media tweets that they want you to put out there, get to understand that head of marketing or whatever. I had a conversation the other day with the senior vice president of marketing for Scott's Miracle-Gro. Scott's Miracle-Gro, Central Ohio company, worth $4.5 billion. And I was talking to him about name, image, and likeness. He had some questions, and we were talking. And he said to me, he was like, you know what, Luke? Like, they've done Super Bowl commercials. They've had Springsteen and all these different, John Travolta, I think, was in their last Super Bowl commercial. He was like, we could go get any student athlete that we want to do a deal for us. But you know what I want? I want a student athlete who grew up cutting grass. I want a student athlete who maybe played football in their backyard where their grass is. Why? Because that's authentic to our brand at Scott's Miracle-Gro, right? Owning your piece of the earth, right? So it's about how do we help teach student athletes about being authentic about who they are. And then when they have the opportunity to do something in name, image, and likeness, to build relationships, develop the life skills so that they can maximize that investment. So when they graduate and they're the 98% that's not going pro, they've already got a job lined up and they maybe have a couple of dollars saved up in the bank.
Demetrius, you have another question?
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll take this one, and we'll take one more question from the group, and we'll wrap it up.
Absolutely. So that was a bit of an alley-oop. I was lobbing that one up for y'all, but to just double click into that, because Luke, you spoke about it, and DJ, you also spoke about this too, in terms of how not only just students but parents are aligning to these opportunities. Luke, I guess this is a two-part. What is the appetite for institutions like the Ohio States of the world, all the way down to the Mississippi valleys and itty bitty Mississippi, right? What is their appetite to actually partner with these third parties or create warm entry points via the students to these opportunities that I think are brand activations for the institutions also, not just a one-sided thing where students are going to benefit. Schools are definitely going to benefit off of this also, but what is the appetite for those third parties? And also, as these third parties are getting ready, how should they be thinking about these opportunities? Because essentially, a lot of these parents are going to eventually try to be within that 98%, right? Are going to try to be their own kids as agents. You know, how should they be preparing themselves from an educational perspective?
So just real quick, clarifying question. When you say third party, are you talking about third party educational resources or third party like brands and companies that want to work with student athletes?
Both.
Okay. So you asking like a two-part question turned into a four-part question. So real quick, in terms of the educational resources, most schools don't know what to do right now. That's just the bottom line. They're trying to figure it out. And so, I've been talking name, image, and likeness. I use this slide in a lot of presentations where I was at the Black Student Athlete Summit that the University of Texas hosts back in January of 2020, talking about name, image, and likeness, the missing piece of the conversation. And to me, the missing piece of the conversation is a student athlete. So I've been talking for years now about name, image, and likeness, and it's just been over the last 8 weeks that schools are like, we need you, we need you, we need you. Now we got to figure this out, right? So, and they're doing that because student athletes are saying, we don't know what to do. Like, you're telling us we can do this, but how do we navigate name, image, and likeness? When it comes to the third parties, I would challenge a bit to say, schools, I think, are nervous about what third-party deals will look like when you think about third-party companies. Because if Nike, let's say, has paid school XYZ $150 million of a contract, and now Nike says, you know what? I think we're going to divert $10 million of that to our student-athlete opportunities, right? And so maybe we're going to put some money into student-athletes directly instead of all the money to you, school, right? Because what we really want is the student-athlete. Right. And by the way, I use Nike, and that's a big example, but let's just pick a car company here in Columbus, right, that has a relationship with the school. What do they really want? They really want the student-athlete saying, hey, I love XYZ car company or whatever, right? Not necessarily just being the official automobile company of the school. So I think the schools aren't that excited about third-party companies and brands necessarily because it may have a direct impact on the dollars that the schools can make.
That's what I was speaking to when I said earlier where the money has to come from. Yeah. Because if that happens, now you got a whole nother ball game, right? Yeah, so if you're talking about a basketball team, it's five players and it's really one superstar and they're going, well, hold on, I'm giving all the money and I really just want this one and I can give him half of that. Then now the rest of the money is gone. What happens then? You have to make up for it somewhere.
Got it. Go ahead.
Right quick, to piggyback off what Luke said too, he said that it's going to be important for athletes to be their authentic selves. I think what we'll start seeing more of is more athletes come out in terms of, their sexuality, in terms of the LGBTQ community, because now you have an opportunity to possibly profit off of, what most athletes have been terrified to do. There are companies and different things out there that if you so choose to now, in a world that's moving more towards being accepting of it, I think, you look at Nesbitt just came out and he had the top selling jersey you know, for Vegas, and I mean, within like 48 hours, just blew the sales off, you know. And so I think that, you know, you'll start to see, again, true athletes be their authentic selves, but also be able to benefit it, you know, from monetarily.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Northland's finest, all the way to Tiffin, by way of North Carolina A&T.
How everybody doing? My name is I'm Quentin Jones. I just finished the year at North Carolina A&T. I'm a student athlete myself, and a lot of the information that was provided today is the first time I'm hearing of it. So,
good.
I could say, like, in terms of the name, image, and likeness, what can I do as a student athlete to make sure that I am indeed prepared for all the opportunities that come, and I'm not drifted away for whatever comes with that.
So here's an athlete at a school down south, basketball player. He wants to take advantage of this market, in this space here. What can he do now? 2 or 3 things to get himself set up.
Yeah, so a few things to think about. You know, think about your social media. And let me take a step back. First, think about if you even want to engage in name, image, and likeness, right? Because it's not an assumption that everybody does, but based on your question, I'm guessing you do. So think about your social media. Think about how you might want to engage. And when I talk to student athletes about like their brand and authenticity, it's about what things do you like? What do you like to do in your like downtime? What brands do you like? What food do you like to eat? Right? And start thinking about, you know, within your community, either your community here in Columbus or your community in Greensboro, right? Thinking about like, you know, what can I do, right? Can I do a camp? Can I do a clinic? Can I do some tutoring and some coaching on basketball skills, right? Could I put together something on, you know, if there's a restaurant in particular that you like, you know, where you go to school and you go there all the time, why not talk to the owner, say, or the manager and say, hey, I'd love to talk to the owner. I love this food. You know, now name, image, and likeness is a thing. I would love to spend some time, get to know you a little bit. Maybe there's something creative we could do together where I could help bring business to your establishment, right? If people aren't reaching out to you directly, then you think about what are some ways that I want to potentially reach out to others. But reach out to others like with brands that you already like, because people know, we all know when we see ads on social media, right? We all know when we flip through like, no, whatever. But if something comes across as authentic, right, then that's more impactful to us. So if you're going to do something, think about those brands, those companies that are important to you. And don't forget also, and I'm glad you brought it up, don't forget nonprofits too. A lot of people just think about for-profit organizations. Nonprofits have spokespeople. Nonprofit pay money to people, right? They have the funds. And so when you think about that, 2 things I'll say. 1, you could do something where you get paid by a nonprofit if it's a cause that's important to you. But also 2, even if you don't get paid, the value of a nonprofit promoting you to their followers, to their board of directors, right? To the people that help make their nonprofit what it is, there's incredible value there too. So think about all of those things that are of interest to you. Start scratching it out, right? Write it out. Write out some of those companies that align with your brand and who you are, and start reaching out to them. And then use your network of people, your village, your community to say, hey, you know what? I really like this particular brand. I don't know anybody there. Do you know somebody there? And see if people can connect you.
And great steps. And Quentin, you got to appreciate the fact that at A&T, there are eyeballs now on A&T. And so, you know, with the track crew running, the football team is doing this thing here. You've got a big personality yourself. There's an opportunity for you in Greensboro to really have a big footprint and big impact. So I'm glad you're here for that, and I'm glad you're able to ask that question. Follow up there.
What sport do you play?
Basketball.
You're a basketball
We
player.
assumed it was basketball.
Yeah, I mean, but you know, I mean, like, so you play basketball. I got some genius advice that'd probably be the best thing.
Go ahead.
Score 40 points, 15 rebounds, 5 blocks, 10 assists. You won't have to worry about none of this. Yeah. You'll be straight. Just go do that this year. Yeah. Go to this guy. You won't have to worry about none of it. Yeah. You have more than you ever need. So, but yeah, I think the advice that they was giving about just really, you know, thinking about what you really want to do, what's important to you. But I always tell people, you know, don't get distracted, man. Just, you know, focus on the thing that's important to you, and then everything else will fall in place. But once you try to go in that direction, make sure you're educated about it.
Absolutely. Yes, sir.
If I had anything to add to that, it would just be connectivity. Just 2 weeks ago, we took 30 kids down to Atlanta, Georgia, to participate in the HBCU mega camp. And what I told our kids was, before we even went down there, we started building profiles, for themselves, so they can pass out to these coaches, quick links showing them who they are, where they're from, GPA, all this stuff, right? I would just tell you, connectivity is everything, right? Don't be afraid to network. Don't be afraid of the no's. Like, don't be afraid to get turned down. Maybe somebody shun you off. Like, have confidence. Connect with everybody, because you never know what one door may open you up to another door, and we've got 3 kids right now at 30 that already got HBCU offers just from showing up 2 weeks ago, staying after, connecting with a coach, finding out, shooting on film, getting their HUD. It was a process, but they stayed after. We stayed maybe 45, 50 minutes after the camp was over with, and all 30 of them just on the field, trying to figure out, trying to network, trying to get cards. You know what I mean? So don't be afraid to put yourself out there.
For sure. I appreciate y'all.
Good luck.
Okay, we're going to close this show today. I think the conversation was engaging, dynamic. I appreciate your energy. I appreciate your questions. I'm going to give each of the panelists a final 20 or 30 seconds to kind of put a button on it. Anything you want to add, anything you want to offer, suggest, point to something you're doing in the future, whatever. The floor is yours. It can be about NIL. It can be about anything. I'm going to start with Brother Dominic. Go ahead.
I guess, my cap on this whole thing would just be to any person of influence who deals with youth. Make sure, if you don't know the answers, make sure you're pointing them in the right directions. I think, again, our youth is the future, and they're so vulnerable, and their parents are, sometimes the parents might be too prideful or what may have it, but let's just make sure collectively as a unit, he said it earlier, man, it takes a village, and I truly believe that. So if you're around some youngsters, man, just pour into them, try to point them in the right directions.
Thank you, DJ.
So every time I keep looking at you, I see over your shoulder, it says, we're the ones we've been waiting for. We are the change that we seek, right? President Obama. I think that we have the opportunity to do something unique and different in the city of Columbus. We have the opportunity through MBK, through the library, through the resources we have available, through partnerships with churches and other nonprofits, for-profits, other people who are experts. We can put together a curriculum for parents and for young people that puts this city on the map as it relates to name, image, and likeness education. Absolutely. We are the change that we seek. We can do that. Let's do it.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you. Coach.
He gave you a challenge right there.
Look. I'm going to put a button on that too.
All right. Hey, mine's very simple. Just, seek out transformational relationships and not transactional. If you do that, you'll be all right. Transformational relationships that transform yourself and relationships that transform others. And not relationships that's just transactional. You trying to get something from them, they're getting something from you. So whenever you see that, and we all know, whether it's dating, whether it's a job, you're like, okay, what does this person want from me, But you see something that somebody truly wants the best for you and themselves, a transformational relationship, that's what's going to move you forward.
I appreciate that. I'm going to take one of the things from the takeaway here. Collaborate, not compete. DJ, that was a word for me. Collaborate, not compete. Because we get in these silos of youth mentoring and outreach. We think I got the sauce. I want to do this thing all on my own. And we don't have all the answers. We got to be strong enough and transparent enough to say that I don't have the answer, but I know somebody that does. We want to be the central focus of educational and youth awareness and outreach through MBK and have it be the central point, the hub. But we don't have all the answers. I know somebody does. I'm strong enough as the program manager to say that I don't have all the answers, but I know a man that does. He helped me with the questions, put together the program. I don't have the answer. He does. And so I appreciate that. And so then moving forward, I desperately hope that we can still bring folks together for conversation and resources to do something new and different. Just because it hasn't been done before doesn't mean it can't be done. We're going to put together some ongoing educational opportunities from MBK, whether it be here, virtually, and other spaces. And when we get that call, collaborate, not compete. When you get that call, collaborate, not compete. The next series we're going to have is going to be a conversation about stand your ground for summer learning through My Brother's Keeper. Keep your eyes open for that. But we got to run this back again. We ask to run this back again, if not just for NIL, college access, awareness, admissions, that whole process. One of the milestones for MBK is make sure that your college and career ready. This is it. This is the foundation. So I thank everyone that came. I think Venture Suite Columbus allows us to use their space. I think CTV that want to be a part of the conversation. All the people in the Department of Neighborhoods that gave us the support to put this together. Our vendors. I'm looking around here. Guys, have a great evening. Collaborate, not compete. Take care. That's it.